Correct. Yeah, so I was a member of the United States Army. I was a exo specialist, combat light wheel engineer, and mechanical engineer. So that falls under what is known as the job description of 63 X-ray. For those who are military may know what I'm talking about, my MOS. And I served 15 years in the military and did some tours into Afghanistan. And so yes, it's good to be home and good to be out of there. Well, I think I give credit to my military background for my capabilities of being able to be diversified and dynamic in multiple spaces of the injustice struggle, because that was the catch of the military, right? You have a job description, MOS, but you're not guaranteed to always do just that job or just that MOS duty. The rule number one of the military is you're a soldier first. So that's the first skill set they teach you off the bat, which is how to be combative and survive in combative situations. You go to your training school actually after you complete basic training, where you're getting those first set of real militant skill sets established into your membrane and your muscle memory. And so I take that multi-diversifiable type of concept that I've already been trained and taught for 15 years with the military and been able to directly apply it to my work in the activist and social justice work that I do today. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually watch the actual funeral itself. I did see some of the news clips and some of the YouTube videos and some of that type of information put out on social media and platforms. And of course, as always, the anger, frustration, and rage immediately builds up in your chest and in your heart. I just recently had a friend that was recently killed here locally, and so that was kind of like a rollover emotions for me. It's like we're already dealing with the police killing us in our communities, and then we are killing ourselves in our communities. And so it's like, how do we break this all-around cycle of black genocide, not just at the police hands, but at our own community hands? And so as an activist, it was a very stressful, emotional, and frustrating day to just see George Floyd laid to rest and realizing what I realized about my friend life, which is that these are both senseless crimes unnecessarily done and taken. And really, on both sides of the fence, there is a way to hold people accountable. The question is, for those of us who are the taxpayers and the voting citizens and the community members and the churchgoers and et cetera, how are we going to come together who are being victimized and affected by this behavior? How are we going to better unite as one and as a total front, telling both sides of the fence this is not allowed nor appreciated in our communities? And we're sick of just watching black men die of senseless deaths at people for senseless reasons at their hands. And so to me, it's a combination of a harsh and ugly truth reality, but at the same time, a way of uniting and creating a solution and finally finding a resolve to this very common problem. Correct. So we met with Chief Thomas twice and Indy Kincannon once so far. I'm very pleased to report that Chief Thomas is very on board with some of the very basic demands. Like we said, the body camera situation. That is a go. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about that. That is going to happen. We spoke about the mental health professionals and the drug intervention professionals being added. Chief Thomas, at first, I will admit, was a little bit curious into what that capacity, what that conversation was about. But I think that myself and my team that we that met with her, we were very well delivering the understanding concept of how we are overworking our officers and asking them to cross over into spaces that are really just outside of their realm and scope of their work profession, and that by adding these supportive services or these supportive professionals would, one, take pressure and work off our police department, and two, allow the staff and the professionals to intervene in spaces where they are the professionals, so that we don't have crises like what we had happen with the young lady in South Knoxville who suffered a gunshot wound from a police officer, but it was very clear she was having signs of mental health. And so those are the type of spaces that we were expressing to Chief Thomas, and she seemed to get on board and fully understand that. And she has even done her own research into figuring out places where police departments have partnership with the supportive services and what that looks like. And we even suggested to her to look at the Portland, Oregon model, where we currently are seeing that in effect in our country, and how well that model has been working for them with the mobile crisis support with their police department, and how that has also done the same thing, taking that pressure off officers and allowed those professionals to step in those spaces. Mm. Mm-hmm. No, they're not. The changes I advocated for were the body cameras, the mental health and the drug intervention professionals, and then the empowerment of the PART, which is the Police Oversight Review Committee. That's the things that we've asked for. And like I said before, Chief Thomas is very open to this capacity of the conversation and really developing a plan and even an implementation of plan, whereas India has been very resentful and very combative even to the process of putting these basic and very simple demands into effect. She's actually on record with my team flat out stating that she was not willing to support having mental health or supportive staff additionally brought onto the police force. And it's very disturbing to hear a mayor who claims to be progressive, who campaigned a progressive platform, who claims she cares about black lives. I mean, we saw her do the run for Ahmaud Arbery. We've seen what she said about Black Lives Matter and racism is not tolerated. Yet here is black leadership asking for some very simple demands to ensure our comfort and safety of those commitments, and yet you have rejected and been resistant to those spaces. I think if you got to see the Renaissance show last night, I think several of the black leaderships brought this up numerous times about the plans and implications of trying to improve the police department and the face of racism in our own culture of our police department. And India Kincannon seemed very passive and almost as if not informed or even communicative to the space. I don't want to hear a mayor keep saying she'll consider or think about this when it's nothing to think about or to consider. The actions have been laid out, the agenda and plan has been given, and all it is a simple implementation and a matter of how we're going to do that. I feel like it's not a positive because again, we need body cameras. You can't talk about use of force of policy if you have no way to eyeball or monitor that policy. You see what I'm saying? Like I can tell you right now, you're not allowed to use chokeholds or anything else in your altercations or encounters with people when you have to restrain them. Okay, but here's the catch: I don't have a body camera on you. So even though I said don't do that, when you roll out the gate, you're still free to use that chokehold because guess what? I have no way to track if you're are or are not. You know what I'm saying? Correct, but I think they need to go cahoots. You need to have a force of action plus the body camera, so that way it's understood if you get caught on camera doing these actions, then it's understood you are in violation of the force of policy at the same time. So to me, it's like it's a minor step in the right direction. The body cameras plus that is a major step in the right direction. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct. Correct. Yes, I would like to take a time and pause on defund. I think people are getting really caught up on the word defund and not what that really means. Defunding the police doesn't mean we're getting ready to just bankrupt the whole department and get everybody out the front door. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is that, for example, like Knoxville, we spent $60 million on our police force, but then in social services and resources, we spent like $3 million. There is a problem here, and that's what we mean when we say defund the police. There's no need for our police department to have $60 million and $3 million going only to the social service resources. We're saying flip the scale. Give the police the $3 million and give the $60 million to the social resources, services, and support, because it's been proven time and time again in areas where they have a lower funding in their police department and more funding in social services and resources, their crime rates are lower. It's just flat out proven. And why is that? Well, because again, what drives crime? Poverty. And so when you are giving people accessibility to services, resources, affordable housing, food, job opportunities, development, etc., you find people do what? They focus in spaces where they can grow versus where they have to survive. And so what we're seeing in areas where they're funding into social services, people are getting the necessary resources and accessibility, everybody's getting the fair shot opportunity, and therefore people focus more in the capacity of how I can be better and do better versus how am I going to thrive and survive the day, and that means I may have to go out and rob or take from someone, which is not really what I want to do, but I'm kind of forced to do because I'm lacking those necessary services being provided by my city or my local government. I would say absolutely not. We have 10,000 plus homeless people here. We have roughly another 10,000 that are displaced, especially after we tore down Austin Homes. And I know personally from my organization, Sleeves for Needs, where we were heavily servicing that community, several of those people don't even live in this city or state anymore because they flat out could not find proper housing. Again, we have 250 unsolved murders in this city. again, we're not doing a good job in these spaces. You know, they gave CAC only $100,000 during the coronavirus. We had $2 million plus in our rainy day fund, but that $100,000 was supposed to be helped to assist people with rent and KUB billing. And again, if you got $100,000 and you got 1,000 plus people in need of assistance, how well are we servicing that? I think if you look at this from that question that you just asked me, at the numbers alone, numbers would say no, we're doing a terrible job in that space. Actually, it's actually the opposite. We are not doing well. We're militarizing our police, as we saw a tank roll down our streets most recently. I'm seeing police officers ride around in body armor and unmarked cars. I just found that recently. We spend $3 million in our police budget alone in unmarked vehicles. Why? Why are you trying to perform what I call really entrapment? Because if a car is not marked and I don't know it's a police officer and you pull me over saying you caught me committing a crime, well, I guess the challenge would now be how we not participating in entrapment. Tell me how you're not breaking that law. Most of the time, unmarked cars are driven by who? Detectives who are out investigating cases and things like that, and they need that unmarked car because, again, their presence is not to disturb traffic or look for people in traffic doing crime. They're out trying to solve crimes, and so unmarked cars make sense for them. But when I got a regular beat officer on his duty beat in a neighborhood riding around in unmarked vehicles, the question for me is why? What is the point of that? So again, most recently, I know that Councilwoman Parker gave out, it's not what we call our 8 can wait. I know some people are trying to title it like that. It's not necessarily our defund the police. It's not that either. The recent most recommendations that came out actually came from PAC, which is the Police Advisory Council that was put together by the wonderful Miss Elizabeth Rowland, who's running for state representative right now. And what those directions were in addition to body cameras, in addition to mental health resources, in addition to empowerment part, it's kind of like a breakdown what that looks like, including some concepts of defunding the police, like we just talked about, $3 million in unmarked cars. Well, that's what we're saying. Instead of giving $3 million to unmarked police cars, put that $3 million back into social services and social resources. Like, we're finding spaces in our police budget where we are unnecessarily spending money, and we're telling our mayor and our police chief to redirect that funding in more resourceful spaces for the community. And so that's been kind of our second piece of legislation that we have as leadership and as a whole came out and said we support and we want to see this implemented as well. As far as I'm concerned, Indy Kincannon has much work to do, and I'm hoping that she keeps her mind open and knows that she's going to have to communicate with her fellow leadership and community leaders to get this resolved and worked over. It's not just going to come straight from the local government or the state or even federal government. It is going to require a relationship with the community and the government coming together as one and doing what's in the best interest of us all. And my thing is that until Indy Kincannon either understands that or shows signs of that, it doesn't matter what we say or do, until she gets on board, this will continue to be a problem for our community. Mm-hmm. Flat out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, flat out. Mm-hmm. 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 It's not real in my opinion, because again, words are great. I'm an action person, and that might come from my military background, because that's how the military was, right? You get told a duty, and then it's action behind it. It ain't no waiting around or figuring out what's that. No, because when that colonel gives that order, he ain't about to tell you how to do it, but he knows he wants the action done. And so when he gets back from whatever he's doing to see what you've been doing, he's expecting that action to be taken care of, and not an explanation on why it's not. And so that's what I feel like India's been doing. What we've been getting is explanations on her behalf, or her department's behalf, of why these things haven't came to pass. But again, we understand you're new mayor, and we understand that you did come in behind Madeline O'Hara and you had to pick up whatever she did or didn't do. But the point is that she's gone, and you're here now. So continuing to use that conversation is like what Trump has been doing with Obama. No one cares what Obama did 4 or 8 years ago, because guess what? You've been in office for 4 years now. So to keep bringing his name up is pointless.